Natalie with Artful Transformations, and today we are going to learn how to break the camera. I'm trying a new camera setup today, so hopefully I will be able to transfer camera things easier. Anyway, alright, hello, this is Natalie Wright from Artful Transformations, and today I am going to show you how to use transfer paper to transfer an image from a reference photo or even a sketch that you may have created to either canvas, or you can also transfer it to paper, whatever it is that you're going to use. So today I have a reference photo from a friend, Jonna. Thanks, Jonna, for the reference photo. And we're going to use this reference photo to put on just a 6x6 canvas block. One of the great things about doing this is that our image can be transferred directly from this guy to this guy, as long as I have the same size. So he's gonna fit on here, so we're good, right? We have plenty of area to add more leaves and stuff if we want to make this a little bit more our own. But for our purposes, whenever we're using transfer paper or tracing paper, we're literally just using the image in whatever size you have printed it out or created it in, if it's a sketch. So if you need it bigger, that means you have to make your reference photo bigger or your sketch bigger to fit whatever your surface is. That is one downside to this method, is that we can't size up our trace. It's going to be exactly whatever size we are tracing from. So I'm going to go ahead and use some washi tape here to just put this image down on my drawing board here. And like I said, I am using a new setup today, which I may have said or not, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm using a new setup today as far as my camera, so so bear with me. I was using my iPhone to do these before, and unfortunately it's a lot harder to transfer those videos from the cloud to what I need to use to get it onto my YouTube channel, and wherever you're watching this, whether it's in the email newsletter, Hello Tribe, or whether it's on my Patreon, hello Patreon members. So what I've got here is just a plain tracing paper. I have a pad of tracing paper from Soho. You can get any tracing paper, it really doesn't matter. They're all pretty much the same. And then I also have transfer paper today, and unfortunately mine doesn't have an actual label to it. Mine came from Amazon in this package, and you can kind of see it's just 100 sheets of tracing paper. We just want to make sure that it's graphite tracing paper, and that's really all that matters to us. So for today's purposes, that's what I'm using. I've also got a pencil. I have a 2B. It really doesn't matter what pencil you use. You could also use a pen if you're going to use this image multiple times and you're just going to use the tracing paper multiple times to transfer the image. You may want to use different colored pens for each time that you transfer it, because we can use this tracing paper over and over and over for this image to put it on different things once we get it traced. So I'm just going to tape down my tracing paper over the top of my image, and that is going to, and you can do all sides, it really is up to you. I don't think I need all sides today. It seems like it's going to do pretty well. And then I'm going to just trace the image wherever I feel I need the image traced. So I definitely want the butterfly Let me see. My pencil's just not quite sharp yet. Let's get that taken care of. So I'm gonna definitely want my butterfly outside of my butterfly transfer. So I'm gonna go ahead and trace the outside of my butterfly so that I can transfer him to my canvas. And there's going to be some spots that are a little bit dark and it gets a little bit harder to see, but that's okay. If you press on your tracing paper a little bit more, it usually makes it a little easier for you to distinguish between the lines of whatever you're working with and where the background is, which is what I'm having more trouble with. Also could just be that my eyes are older. Alright, so get this wing. And this wing. And since we're painting, I'm going to be painting this butterfly. I'm not really a whole bunch concerned about making it specifically like perfect on all the edges because I know that I am probably going to move things around whenever I paint. So I've got the outside of my butterfly traced on my tracing paper. If you want the details of the butterfly, you're going to go ahead and go through and get all of those done. There's also leaves out here, so I'm just going to kind of fill in a couple of these leaves. So that gives me an idea where these guys are if I decide to put them in later. And I may not, right? I could transfer all of this stuff over to the canvas and then decide that I really don't want all of the extras, and I just kind of fade them back into the background. But I'm kind of going a little faster because these are bigger chunks that don't necessarily, for me, they're not necessarily gonna live in the same spot when I paint it. But if you're tracing something that you want to be specifically what is on the photo, then definitely take a little bit more time than I am. But for today's video, I want to make sure that I'm not keeping you a whole long time watching me trace stuff. And there's definitely quite a bit more going on in this picture. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff over there that I haven't traced because it's more in the background. So like I said, whatever you feel is necessary to trace for your purposes, that's what we're doing right now. A couple of these that I need, maybe. That seems like a nice flow over if I decide to just do these specific areas. So, and then fade the background maybe, so that's nice. We'll go with that. For my purposes, I do actually like to have the the detail on my butterfly when I transfer it, because it's just a lot easier to work with that way. So I will be filling in the details. Once I get my pencil resharpened because it broke. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to fill in the details of this butterfly. You're welcome to fast forward if you do not want to watch all of it, because there are quite a bit of spots on this butterfly, and that's why I want to get it all in there. I could do it by hand, just by looking at the butterfly after I trace the outline if I wanted to, but this guy is pretty complex in his design, so I'm just going to go ahead and make it easier on myself and get them all in now. Some people think that if you trace your image from the reference photo that you're not a true artist, that it should be from scratch. You know, that mindset is entirely up to you. I think that that if I take this image, even if I do trace it and I'm going to paint it, the work really is the painting part. It's not in the drawing part for that particular piece. That being said, I don't always trace what I'm doing reference photo wise, but if I'm doing a study like this one's just kind of a study of what this butterfly looks like, then you know I'm not really focused on being able to draw it. I'm focused on getting the colors and the paints and stuff to match what I want on the painting, and not so much on the actual, like, worrying about drawing this butterfly. So, like I said, it's really up to you what type of mindset you want to develop around that thought. I know a lot of seasoned artists that, to save time, if they want to create a painting of maybe a loved one, they will just trace that photograph because it's going to save them time in the long run. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a piece for a commission, but even so, even if it was a piece for a commission, does it cheapen that commission if that artist didn't draw the picture that you wanted verbatim? Or does it matter more that the image is what you wanted and the final piece is painted and perfect as you wanted it? So just some thoughts. But like I said, if you're not a drawer, if you don't like to draw, or you're not really versed in drawing, and maybe you just haven't got there yet, maybe you haven't developed those skills yet, this is a great way to get whatever it is that you want to paint or color, right? Because we could be doing markers or colored pencils or whatever the case may be. So whatever you want to make the object of your artwork, this is a great way to get that transfer done, and make sure that the image is exactly how you saw it. Great for studies. And when I say studies, for those of you who are not familiar with what that means, when we do a study in art, we're literally just taking an image like this one, right? This would be a study of a butterfly, and we're going to create this butterfly in a painting or a drawing. And when we're doing that, we're kind of just figuring out what that butterfly looks like, as far as like where's the depth, how does the perspective work out in this particular photo. And it actually builds those skills for drawing later or painting without having to draw a reference later. So it could be that, like, after I painted this study and I looked at the photo and I found all of the spots where all of the shadows are, and I found all the spots where the colors change, and all of that stuff. I got all that information from this study, and then I decided that I wanted to replicate this butterfly on a different canvas or a different artwork. I could go through and use the skills that I learned from completing this particular study to to paint that out, either without drawing it at all, just painting it, right? Or I could use what I learned from drawing and tracing it the first time to draw it out freehand the second time, right? Because now I know my hands already have drawn this out. They know where the things go. I mean, obviously my hands don't, but the whole memory of it is stored somewhere. So it makes it just a little bit easier for me to be able to do the same image again. Or you could just keep tracing, nothing wrong with it. I happen to think that even if you trace the first, the base image, the reference photo image, I happen to think that it's still original art, because you still have to do something to it. And even though my reference, or your reference, if it's your work, is going to be built from a trace of an image, it still has to be created, right? The painting or the specific drawing, whatever you're doing to it, you're still going to have to create it, and that's still going to be in your style. So if I were to trace this twice and give you a canvas to paint on with this image, your image is going to still look very different than mine, even though it's coming from the same trace of the same photograph. So, just some food for thought. I'm almost done here. Make sure that I got it all. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that I've got my whole butterfly and all the details traced. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift this off. And I want the washi tape because I want to put it on my canvas. But I don't need this part anymore. I mean, I will, right, because it's my reference photo for when I'm painting. So I'm going to stick it up. I have a wall where I keep my reference photo. So I'm going to stick it up on my wall so that I can look at it whenever I get to this piece. So for now, the first thing that's going to go down on my canvas is my transfer paper, which is that black paper. And if we look at it, I've already cut one to a 6x6 side, and actually if you look at it, it's already got, I don't know if you can see that, but it's already got an image that I've traced out of it. And I can use this several times as long as I'm not tracing the same image in the same spot, because there's graphite still on this part. So when we're looking at this, we have a shiny side and a dull side. The shiny side is where the graphite pencil actually lives. That's where the transfer side is. So we want to make sure the shiny side, sorry guys, I can't talk today, the shiny side is going to go on the canvas or the paper, and the dull side is going to be up. So I have tape on this already. I'm just going to find a nice spot, and mine's a little bit bigger than my canvas so that I can kind of put my washi tape down on the sides, and that also will give me an idea of where my canvas ends. So I'm going to go ahead and put some washi tape over here, get an idea of that, and I'm going to put one over here, even though this one's pretty much par, it's pretty much dead on. Okay, so I've got that on. Now I'm going to take my tracing paper. I must have got hair stuck in this thing because it's flying in front of my canvas. There we go. Alright, so we're going to take my tracing paper and I'm going to find where I want it on my canvas. So this image that I have here is just a little bit shorter, or it's a little bit smaller on the top and the bottom than my canvas is. So I kind of need to figure out like where do I want this to lay, because I'm going to have to add to it when I paint, because there's not enough leaves, or at least the leaves are cut off down here. So I'm going to use my washi tape to get it on there, And you can add more washi tape on the sides if you want. I'm just going to leave it how it is. And since I did this in pencil, I'm going to find something else to do it in. I've got a black pen here, and that's going to give me an idea of where I've been. If I do it in pencil again, it might be a little bit more complicated for me to see where I have already traced. So you could also do this in a marker. Whenever you're pushing down on the paper, that's how it's transferring. So it really doesn't matter what color you're using. It only matters that you're putting stuff on the paper. And apparently I've got a bunch of it on me already. All right, so one thing about graphite transfer paper is that it is it goes on very dark. No matter how light or heavy you push. So it is best to press lightly, especially if you're doing a transfer for watercolor paint, because obviously in acrylic we are going to erase our transfer lines to make them a little bit lighter, but in watercolor we definitely want them lighter because the watercolor doesn't cover like acrylic does. So make sure when you're doing this that you are pressing lightly. Also, when you're doing this, be mindful of how much you move your hand across the paper, because any movement that you make that's harsh, like a little bit of pressure across the canvas where your transfer paper is going to make a mark or a smudge. So I've probably made several smudges, and I'll show them to you once I get all of this transferred. So right now it's just going over all of those lines that I made, all the detail lines that I made, hoping that they all come out. And if they don't, that just means that I'm going to have to go back and add them in just by looking at my reference photo later. Or you can always, if you miss something when you transfer, you can always just put the transfer page back on if you can find the right spot again. So that's why it's helpful to make your transfer and tracing page pretty much the same size as what you're doing, because then you definitely can find that spot again, or at least makes it easier to find that spot again. Can do this with just a blunt edge without ink. It does make it a little bit harder for you to tell where you've been though. But I do have some that are just these blunted end tracing, I guess, wands or pencils. I'm not really sure what they are, but they make it so that you can trace across the top of this paper, the transfer paper, and it will it'll activate that graphite on the bottom, but it won't leave a mark on your tracing paper. So, like I said, sometimes it makes it a little bit harder because then we can't see what we've traced, especially if it's as detailed as this butterfly here. This is quite a bit of detail. Now each time I'm doing this and my ink is not going on very well, I'm going back and over it, and that's more for your benefit than it is for the benefit of the canvas. If I press down, it's transferring. So even if my pin looks like it's not completely on there in places, that's okay because it's still transferring. But if you see me go over something that I've already gone over, that is because I am trying to make it so that you can see exactly where I've been. More so than for the tracing or the transfer paper, because see how it's getting a little light here. If I go back over it, you can actually see where I've been, but I know that pushing down on this, these things are showing up even if my pen is showing me that they're not. On the edges, so my 6x6 canvas here is it's stretched so it goes up on the edges, which makes it a little bit more complicated sometimes to get the corners. So if you see me kind of botch in the corners, that's why. But like I said earlier, as long as we've got those guidelines, I can do whatever I want with the painting, right? I can paint over top. I just need to know where my stuff is so that I can work with it. Okay, so I've got this whole another side of the butterfly going on, and then we're gonna be done, and we can see what we've got here. Let's get this butterfly over here. I can tell you that if you have trouble seeing well, tracing initially with graphite pencil might be a little bit more of a challenge if you're doing this with lesser capability in your eyes, because the graphite on the tracing paper does give this sheen that sometimes makes it a little bit complicated to see. So if you have trouble with eyesight, maybe when you transfer the image from the reference photo, it may be a good idea for you to use a color pencil or a pen or a marker that you'll be able to see pretty easily, even if there is a glare. Some of the times when I'm doing this, I've had a couple of times, even during this video, where I've been tracing over my trace, and it's pretty shiny because of the lights that I have for the video, so it's kind of hard for me to see where it's going. One more wingy thingy and we're done. So either my table is askew or my canvas is askew. Something's askew. That's why it's rocking and you're hearing that noise. pretty sure I got it all. We'll just kind of look over it, make sure. As far as I can tell, I got it all. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove them both. And that is what we get. It's a pretty perfect looking trace. It doesn't look like I missed anything, which is grand. Alright, so let me show you the spots that I was talking about. So around the edges here, we've got some smudges from where I was moving my hands across the transfer paper. So that's what happens. So for this, before we got started, right, I wouldn't want to paint over this like this. There's a lot of graphite on here. So what I would do is, if you have a gum eraser, those are probably the best. I have a new one here that's in a package and it's being difficult to open, so bear with me. Alright, so you could just take a gum eraser and go over the top of it, right? Because usually gum erasers, you can make them into, I haven't played with this one yet, so they're a little bit more complicated when you haven't played with them. Just trying to make it into a little bit more round. Okay, so I can kind of do this. Sometimes that works, but the graphite from those papers are pretty heavy when it goes on. So as I'm erasing, it's going to stay on pretty well. So if you don't have a gum eraser, these white erasers are amazing, and they don't leave a bunch of pink or colored stuff in the canvas pockets for you to deal with, which is nice. One thing that I would say about erasing after a transfer, so I try to go with the lines that I've made, because it will smear. There's a couple of places that I've smeared it already. You can kind of see that it's smeared a little bit around there. So when you are erasing, just remember there's a lot of graphite that just got transferred, so try and be a little bit gentle. That's why these gum erasers are a little bit better to use. They don't smear nearly as much as the white erasers do, and you can usually roll them across the top. This one's just not cooperating with me today, so just use it as a typical eraser and move it around to keep this. You'll notice that on the corners there's a lot more graphite than in the middle. That's because I was pressing harder on the outsides so that I could get those corners done. It just was not cooperating. So that's kind of the difference. There's this out here. I've never had the trouble of erasing too hard after transfer paper. There's always going to be graphite left, so like I'm really pushing pretty hard here to try and get this stuff off, and it's not all coming off, and it's not gonna. We just want to get it as light as possible, which is why I said definitely, you know, watch how hard you're pushing when you're using your transfer paper, because we don't want to have it super dark. But that looks like it's pretty much where it's going to be. Not much else is coming off. So that's where we're at. And from here, we can start painting. So, so this particular project will eventually be on my Patreon Studio Time page, so you're welcome to join me over there. I have several different levels of membership at my Patreon. And it's at www.patreon.com/artfultransformations. But so on my Patreon, you can get one level, which is the Academy level, and that is literally just access to all of the mini courses and the full-length painting classes that I've done. And eventually it will expand into all kinds of different mediums. But for now, it's a bunch of different mini classes like this one, as well as all of the acrylic paintings classes that I've done, step-by-step guided for you to do in your own. So there's that membership. Another membership that I have is just a studio time membership, kind of like a behind the scenes of the studio. So anytime I'm working on something in the studio, I record it. You get to hear all of my unedited commentary. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's me singing. So be warned, be forewarned. And then there's a combined membership, which is the inner circle, and that is where you get all of the things. You get the studio time, and you get all of the Academy membership benefits, so all of those videos, classes for you to see. So all of the memberships are very minimal in fee. And hopefully eventually I'll be able to create an additional membership option where we can create like a community. I want to create a cohort for all of us online where we can share our things and maybe have some live Q&As and things like that. So that's eventually coming. I can't say when because I have no idea. But for now, definitely go and check out the Patreon. I also have a YouTube channel where this will be as well, and most likely if you're watching this from the email, it is coming from YouTube. So hopefully you enjoyed this information. I hope it helps you in your artistic journey. And stay tuned, because this month we are also going to learn how to transfer images using the grid method. So I'll see you next time for that video, and until then, happy creating!